What's up, everybody? Welcome back into Gameball. We had a big game last night between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles as the Eagles looked to go 1-0, which they did to begin the season and to start their march towards repeating, going back to back like the cover of Lethal Weapon. And when you look at the game, I was having a tough time debating, did the Eagles win it or did Dallas lose it? And to be honest with you, my what I walk away with is Dallas lost the game. They looked really sharp throughout the game, especially Dak Prescott. He looked like his old self from 2023 that allowed for him to get the biggest contract in NFL history, to be paid the most money per year by a quarterback at $60 million per year. He looked like the guy who was co-MVP in 2020, or runner-up in 2023 for the MVP, where he had 4,500 yards passing, 36 touchdowns passing, 9 interceptions. He looked the part. You look at his numbers, if you're a box score watcher, he looked terrible. 21 for 34, 188 yards. That's brutal. But when you watch the game, he looked phenomenal. And the whole team for Dallas on offense, they were having their way. They were going about it like they were playing practice, like it was training camp. They looked really smooth the entire time. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb had his drops, and if he were to hold on to a few of those drops, I think we would have been talking about a Dallas victory against the defending Super Bowl champions. And then you look at the interior of this Dallas offensive line, they were having their way. Tyler Booker looked like a vet. Cooper Beebe looked really good out there. And Tyler Smith was being Tyler Smith, which is a guard you do not want to mess with. He was killing them. The D tackles weren't getting any pressure. They couldn't get any gap integrity going. Jordan Davis wasn't doing much. Ojomo, he came in for Jalen Carter, and he also was not doing much. And Dallas was having their way with the running game. Miles Sanders had that big run for 49 yards. Javonte ran for over 50 yards. You look at one of his touchdown scores. Tyler Booker cleared the way to open up a nice running lane for Javonte to scamper on into the end zone to score a touchdown. And the interior of Dallas's O-line was awesome, both passing and rushing, which is not a surprise, right? Cooper Beebe was a great center last season. Tyler Smith had the lowest pressure rate allowed last season amongst guards. The tackles weren't playing great. Guyton did not look like he took a step yet. Steele doesn't look like what Dallas hoped he was when they signed him to his long extension. But at the end of the day, Dallas was playing really good football. And I'm not going to give any credit to the Eagles' defensive line, even for the pressures they had, because if they were doing anything somewhat productive, they would have had a sack. They didn't touch Dak. They didn't have a sack in Dak Prescott. The only time they made contact with him was an unnecessary roughness called on Nolan Smith. That was called. I mean, he made a couple costly penalties. He had that, and then he had the taunting penalty on Miles Sanders, both 15-yard penalties. And the pocket was really clean, but when it did collapse, it wasn't because the Eagles had anything going defensively with their pass rush. It was because the tackles for Dallas weren't they just weren't good enough, right? That's all it was. But Dak made it work. I mean, case in point is look at the first drive for Dallas. The tackles they were being pushed in on Dak, and he was at the Eagles about 40, 45 yard line, and there was an edge coming around just trying to strip him, and he did not even flinch. He just stayed calm in the pocket, and he ended up throwing the ball perfectly placed to CeeDee Lamb to set the ball up in a first and goal situation where again Javonte Williams capped it off with a rushing touchdown. Dallas looked sharp offensively. They were in a groove, and I'm not surprised by this. I mean, when you have Pickens, when you have CeeDee Lamb, you have arguably one of the best duos in the NFL when it comes to receiving. I mean, off the top of my head, I think of the Bengals probably having better with Jamar and T. Higgins. You think of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but I don't think they're better than CeeDee and George Pickens. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone. Maybe not. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, debatable. I mean, it's close. It really is. I could go either way. But it's a phenomenal duo they have in Dallas, and they looked the part last night. And again, going back to CD now, right? Again, looking at that situation, it was not the Eagles having good coverage. They were terrible. I mean, their DBs looked just as bad as advertised. Blankenship wasn't all that in a bag of chips. You had the second corner, whoever it was, opposite of Kenyon Mitchell at any given down, giving up a big play. They weren't doing well no matter who they threw out there. And Mitchell did not look good either. I mean, he had that big pass interference, 34-yard penalty when he just grab George Pickens, and he did it throughout the game. And sometimes it was called, sometimes it wasn't. But he didn't look good. He did not look good at all that game. But yeah, looking at the CD drops, he had four drops, four crucial drops. And if he caught any one of these, you can make a case that Dallas would have won the game or tied the game at the least, and especially on that final drive. But the first big drop by CD Lamb came in the second quarter. There was 2 minutes, 49 seconds left to go. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys are at the 23-yard line of Philadelphia. It was a 2nd and 10 situation, and Dak threw the ball to CD Lamb and he dropped it. He ran like I would say a hitch route where he just ran straight and then cut right back about 10 yards deep at the first down marker, and CD dropped it, and it resulted in Dallas then going into a 3rd and 10 situation, not converting and settling for your field goal. If he caught that, you have a lot of time. You have your timeout. You have 2-minute warning. That could have been a touchdown, or if it wasn't a touchdown, well, maybe that would have just resulted in Dallas holding the ball, scoring a field goal, and not letting the Eagles get another score on the board. So I know it's a what ifs, but it was a drop nonetheless. Then you look at the fourth quarter, and it was 3rd and 10 to begin the fourth quarter at the 15-minute mark. Dallas was at their own 49-yard line. And Dak Prescott threw another beautiful ball to CD Lamb. And CD Lamb, he ran out and in, and there was a safety coming in. He had his corner burnt, and CD went to catch it, and he dropped it. It went through his hands, off his helmet. It was an incomplete pass. And you can say, well, Madsen, what about the safety crashing in on it? Maybe he was worried about it. We see guys all the time. He had enough separation. It looked like there was about 3 to 4 yards of separation where he could have caught it and just dropped. And with the new penalties in place, right, with all for the past couple of years, with all the safety precautions, no one would have made contact with him. So I understand, and if we want to give him the pass on that one, then go for it. Then go for it. That, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. If you say it's a dangerous pass, that's fine. But he still had another inexcusable drop. These are just examples, and it's just like CD. Like that's not like him. And if he would have caught those, it was not because the Eagles playing good defense. It was just CD had a bad game. That's all. And then obviously we look at the fourth quarter. We look at the final drive. CD on that deep crossing route. He had everyone beat. It was perfectly placed. He came in, he crossed Turpin. Turpin ran the right. CD he was in stride. And Dak dropped it right in the bucket. And CD just dropped the ball. He dropped it. Okay, that's it. He just dropped the ball. And it was not the Eagles again. They weren't pressuring Dak in that moment. They didn't have a good secondary going. It was just a drop. And then last but not least, on the 4th and 10, the CD Lamb, he lobbed it up, and sure, it wasn't you know, right in the bucket, and it wasn't CD, having a great, just right there for him to catch it. But I'm not going to blame Dak. May not blame CD, but when you're paying the guy top money, you would expect at least one of those four passes to be caught, and they're all game-changing plays. So whether you want to argue that one or the other or two weren't per se catchable balls or hard balls to catch, that's fair. And I'll say, you know what? Sure, you're right. I'll give you all the credit you want. But he still had two other crucial drops, and one of them was definitely inexcusable, which was the crossing route and what was it, 3rd and 10, maybe 2nd and 10, but it was in the final drive. Here it is. It was a 1st and 10 at Dallas's 38. So that was just an example of a play that CD Lamb should have made. You look at the Ferguson, the one in the end zone when he got the penalty called on Blankenship. It was a dot by Dak, but hospital ball. I don't want to hear people saying that's an example of another drop. It was a bad ball, and I don't blame Ferguson for dropping it. But again, here's an example of the Dallas Cowboys beating themselves, and it was not Eagles coverage being great. But on that same drive, here I'll pull it up right. I'll look at it right now for you guys to get it exact in case you want to look up the video. But that same drive, the Dak Prescott throw to Ferguson was at 4:58, right? 1st and 22 of that same down and distance, it was 5:07 remaining in the third quarter. It was a 1st and 22. Jake Ferguson, he just broke out. He was butt naked, and Zach Bond ended up catching up, and it bounced off his helmet. Ferguson had to try and jump over Bond to try and catch it. But it was an underthrown ball by Dak. Let's say Bond was out the picture. Ferguson would have had to slow down, just kind of stand there to catch it. If Prescott led him more, that would have been a touchdown. So it wasn't pressure getting to Dak. It wasn't coverage by Bond being great. It was simply Dak underthrew it. That was his one bad throw of the night. And then you see all the CD things. That was CeeDee Lamb dropping the ball. And then you can look back at other things. It was a 3rd and 12. I forgot how much time was left, but maybe it was second 12. But long story short, Kayvon Turpin was leaking out in the flat. It was a design wide receiver screen or pass, and Tolbert just missed his block assignment. If he blocked the guy in front of him, Turpin probably would have had the first down. The dude's faster than lightning. So again, it's all these little things that I'm pointing at, and it's like Eagles were terrible defensively. Their secondary was cooked, and their front seven was dog water. Like they lost Milton Williams and Joshua Sweat. Those are two studs. Sweat had what 8.5 sacks last year, 11 sacks another year with Philly. He was great. They had no edge pressure the entire game, none. And if you want to say, well, Dak got pressured, I would only give credit, say he got pressured if there was a sack. But to me, it just looked like the tackles weren't holding up all that well. In Dallas, they never seemed, Dak at least never seemed uncomfortable. It was credit to him looking like his old self, but also the Eagles are not that vaunted defense that we saw last year. They lost big players. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's no longer with the team, right? He's in Houston. Darius Slay is gone. And sure, he was older, and I don't think he would have been all that much better, but he's better than what they have now. They lost Brandon Graham, who, again, not that big of a loss, but it was somebody who I would at least trust right now to be better than who they have at certain positions. Hunt wasn't, he was fine. And then they lost Joshua Sweat. Milton Williams is not this vaunted defense anymore. And I'm sure it would have been different if Jalen Carter was in the game. I know it would have been. But how much different would it have been? I don't know. And then you look at the Eagles offensively, right? And one last thing about Dallas, we'll get to it later. But you look at the Eagles offensively in that game. And Jalen Hurts was playing smart football. All right, everyone wants to call him. You go on X and you see check down artist, 150 yards passing, one target is AJ Brown. Right, it's funny, right? Whatever you think it's funny, you may not think it's funny. It's up to you. But he played great football, and there's no other way around it. Jalen Hurts took what the defense gave him. He ran for 60 yards, over 60 yards. He led the Eagles in rushing yards. He had two rushing touchdowns, one of which he just walked in the end zone. There was no QB spy. Matt Eberflus had a phenomenal defense going for Dallas, but I don't know if he forgot or if he didn't care for it, but it was a credit to Jalen Hurts for taking what the defense gave him. Like that was great ball by Jalen Hurts. But it was also like, what are you doing? You have Kenneth Murray as one of the most athletic linebackers, and Jack Sanborn, who had a really solid career in Chicago before coming to Dallas, and he didn't put either one as a spy on Jalen Hurts. What are you thinking? What are you thinking there, Matt Eberflus? I'm like genuinely, what are you thinking there? And then you look at the final drive for the Eagles. It was under 2 minutes. It was a 3rd and 3 at about midpoint of the field. And Jalen Hurts he scampered in. Dallas Goedert was being guarded by Jack Sanborn, and he turned around to try and catch it. It was a tight window. Then he just boxed out for him. And Jalen Hurts ran for the first down because Goedert was boxing out Sanborn. There should have been another helmet there waiting for Hurts because Hurts is not a game breaker with his speed. He's smart, but he's not a speed threat, right? I think Josh Allen's probably a better runner. Lamar Jackson's a better runner. But Jalen Hurts played smart football, and he took what the defense gave him, and he cooked Dallas because of it. But all in all, I mean, it just felt like every single time you look at this game, Dallas should have. There was a few things here and there, right? We can talk about the drops, but like the QB spy situation, and it's like Dallas could have won the game. They should have won the game. They really should have won the game if they just did a couple more little things. They held Saquon in check. Held Shipley in check aside from that 120-yard rush down the left side to begin the game. I mean, Dallas played great defensively. And DeVon Bland, Trayvon Diggs, they're back, right? Micah's gone. Okay, that stinks. Whatever. It was a trade that had to be done. It was a brilliant trade by Dallas. But that doesn't mean their defense is bad. DeRon Bland, Trayvon Diggs played phenomenal ball. That's why AJ wasn't getting the ball. That's why Devontae wasn't getting the ball. It wasn't because Jalen Hurts is a check down artist. It's because the defense was so freaking good for Dallas. DeRon Bland had a big tackle, right? When you saw him, he made a big play. When you weren't, it's because he's locking down downfield alongside Trayvon Diggs. Elam was the only guy to get burnt one time by Jahan Dotson for a big play. Big play, right? You don't want to see that. You could say it's inexcusable, but all in all, long story short, the secondary for Dallas looked legit. And the front seven for Dallas, it's kind of coming around a little bit, right? Like Dante Fowler had some play. He looked solid. I'm blanking. Marshawn Nealand, he had that sack. They were getting some pressure. They gave up 157 yards rushing, somewhere around that total. Last year they're giving up more than that per game. I mean, they were giving up 190, 200 sometimes to teams. I mean, they were not doing all that well last season to stop the run. They looked pretty good against what we all considered the best offensive line in the NFL and against the best running back in the NFL. Last season, I'm trying to pull up the number for you guys about how many yards Dallas gave up against the run. The last season, they gave up 137 yards against the run. So that's because some games they gave up big numbers. So 200 is a bit of exaggeration, but point being, they limited, they completely took away the passing game for Philly, and they only gave up 150. They weren't getting gutted in either way. So they look good. Now, the one if I want to put out there is let's not get ahead of ourselves with this Dallas front seven. Like they looked better than what you could anticipate, but it's probably not going to be that good because that 1 hour delay, it didn't allow for the Eagles to get that wear and tear going, right? Their O line is so just demoralizing because like the Lions last year too, they run it every single drive. They run the ball. So when you get to the third and the fourth quarter, especially, the defense is just dead tired. They're sucking for air. And with that 1 hour delay, it basically allowed for there to be relaxing a new game almost, and that wear and tear just wasn't there anymore. So expect something a little bit take it with a grain of salt what Dallas did defensively, but also recognize that, hey, they still did pretty solid in terms of they were playing the best offensive line, the best running back with a mobile quarterback, and they only allowed 150 yards. So find somewhere in the middle. But long story short, this game to me showed that Dallas lost it, the Eagles didn't necessarily win it, and that the Eagles defense, it needs some work. It's going to need some work. It's going to need some improvement, especially in that front seven and obviously in the secondary. Jalen Hurts smart quarterback play. The Eagles' offensive line still dominant. You look at Dallas, their defense is going to be better than you think. Their offense is going to be clicking still. I mean, their passing is going to be through the roof. Dak looked great. CD is going to be great. Pickens looked freaking picture perfect in there. Picture perfect in there. And I think there's more to this team. The last thing I want to note about Dallas before we wrap it up here is the running game. Okay, Javonte Williams isn't really all that good. He's not, right? He isn't what Dallas needs to be a lead back. He's going to be a great third down back, a great goal to go zone guy. But if you play fantasy, maybe you're a fantasy person watching this, pick up Jaydon Blue. I'm telling you, pick up Jaydon Blue because the Dallas Cowboys year in and year out have the one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They've been like that since Jerry's taken over. If you can hate him or love him as much as you want, but the one thing you have to respect is he can build an offensive line, and it's going to be awesome. And Javonte Williams ran for over 50 yards, 2 scores, but he's not explosive. He never was, and he's less explosive. The you rarely see lead backs built like him in the league. The only name that comes to mind is it's just an animal. It is a dog. He's awesome. It's Derrick Henry. He's the only physically built running back who has success as a lead back. Javonte is not that. Javonte's slower, or maybe not slower, but he's smaller. All right, he's coming in 2 years ago. Let me think. 2023, he suffered that terrible knee injury where he messed up his. Let me pull up exactly what the injury was. He messed up his. He tore two things. I'm sorry, guys. My bad, my bad, my bad. He tore his ACL and his LCL, okay, in 2022. Big knee injury. He was never explosive before. He ran a 4.57 at the combine. He was never explosive at college. That was Michael Carter, his running mate, who was more explosive than him. Javonte was never explosive. And in the NFL, you need explosive out of your running backs if you want to have them be your lead back. I know I'm pulling out some big names, but listen to this. Since entering the league in 2018, Saquon Barkley has had 60 20-plus yard rushes. Jahmyr Gibbs in the past 2 years since entering the league, 23. Okay? Breece Hall, just a random player. He's been in the league for 3 years and he's played 40 games. He's had 13 20 plus yard carries. Derrick Henry, the guy who's kind of built in that same realm of Javonte Williams. Since entering the league in 2016, he's played 136 games. He has 72 20 plus yard carries. Javonte Williams has been in the league since 2021. He's played 55 games. He's had nine total 20 plus yard carries, and here's the problem. Six of those nine came his rookie year prior to his injury. He's lost his explosiveness. Jaydon Blue is explosive. He ran a 4.37 at the combine. He ran faster at his pro day. He's going to be the lead back in Dallas. He's going to be the guy. So when Jaydon Blue gets integrated in there, I'm telling you, this Dallas running game is going to be better. And it's not going to be because Javonte, like you're great. I'm hoping you do well. He's going to be an animal. He's going to be a tank on those goal to go situations and those short yardage situations, especially on third down. But it's Jaydon Blue's backfield. He's the man behind it. So we saw two great teams. We saw two playoff teams go at it. Incredible game. Awesome watch. Dallas is going to be better. They're going to win some games. And the Eagles, as much as I want to poke at them, they still have good players, right? They still have a great linebacker core. They still have great defensive tackles. They're going to be better, but it's not going to be that scary Eagles front that you see like last year. They don't have the guys to do it. They don't. And that's the truth about it. So this division may or may not come down the wire. I expect both teams to make the playoffs. But all in all, if you're a Dallas fan, you should be excited. And if you're an Eagles fan, think about it the way Lane Johnson thought about it. He said about the game when asked about the win. He said, "That's all I care about. We have a lot to correct and we know it, but the name of the game is winning, and we did that." The Eagles did that, but there is also a lot to correct. I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you. This is Game Ball. Please like, subscribe, and comment. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks.